I'll get you to just begin with your name and just how long you've been living in the area, how you came to live in the area. We'll just begin with your association.
Yeah. Can I give the year? Otherwise,
Yeah.
my maths,
Yeah.
mental maths is not good.
Yeah.
Right. My name is Megan LeMay. I lived in Gifford Way, Dianella, which is one street away from here, which is great. I moved in we moved in, my husband and I, in 1967. The area, well, our street was all brand new houses, and we bought the show house, which was nice. And I think there were three vacant blocks in the street then, and in time they've all gone. As you say, things changed so much. There was no Dianella Plaza. There was a sign on the block saying it was coming, but it took a long time. And then it was enlarged 3 times. They added on to Dianella Plaza. So, and the bush just behind my house here, Breckler Park, used to be, when I was walking the dogs, I got friendly with an elderly gentleman who had been living in the area for donkey's years. And his father ran his horses in the park because most of the bush was a lake. You can tell by looking at the types of trees that are there. And yes, it was a lake, so they used to take the horses down to there to have a swim and whatever, and eat the grass for a while and then take them home again, which would have been interesting if you'd been there at the time. No, it was lovely, and it still is a beautiful park.
Mm-hmm. Where would you, in those early days before they built Dianella Plaza, do your shopping?
Let me think. I used to go back to Beaufort Street where we lived because there were a few shops there, but I can't honestly remember any other shop around us, for sure. Mm-hmm. And it was quiet in those days too. You didn't have all the sirens of the ambulance, police cars, whatever. Beaufort Street was a nightmare.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
when you moved to Dianella, there was a few spare blocks you said on your street. Can you recall the kind of development of your street and the neighbours that started to come in, the people that you met?
It's a fairly Jewish area because it's close to the shul and the temple. So I had a lot of Jewish neighbours, and they're all so nice and generous. You know, they were all lovely. My neighbours still come and have coffee with me. One of them in particular, he comes every morning. My next door neighbour, we used to have coffee together anyway. So he comes over and has coffee with me, and his dog and my dog love each other, so that's nice. There was a Greek family just one house down opposite our place. And in those days, well, our street mainly and the street behind us were all built by the same building company. So you'd go to the back street and there was identical houses, you know, my next door house, the house next door to me, there was one behind that house. But now every house that's sold is knocked down. There's so many houses being built in my old street, and they're usually big ones. Mm-hmm. My old house is getting knocked down, which is a shame because it's a big house, 2 stories and swimming pool and workshop. If I'd known it was coming down, I would have taken some of my favourite plants with me. But yeah, there's a school up the road, Sutherland Primary School. It was quite small in those days. My children went there. That's been almost totally refurbished and enlarged naturally with the children coming along. What other changes are there? The plaza was the change that was the best thing that happened. When it first opened, as I say, it was quite small, and then they added on the next piece, and then they added on the next piece, and then they added another piece because, what am I talking about? Coles was in Dianella, just past the library. There used to be shops there, which have all gone now, for flats and things. But yes, there was a Coles store there, and a bridal clothes shop. I mean, tucked away in a little area that people didn't really know. I don't think they would have had much custom.
Yeah.
Yes, and the next nearest shops were Inglewood. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. What was it like raising a family? What was it? Was the school close and the kids could walk to school?
Yes, it's just up the end of my street. It was mainly older people that moved in. Well, they were older when my kids sort of grew up, and there was no young children. And then with the newer families coming in, the house opposite my old house, they had 5 children, and next door to them had 3 children. Just down the road there was 2, and there was another 2 before you got to them. It's regenerated, and this is why the houses they're building the new houses because they're much better than the old. Although I think the old houses were nicer, for sure.
And were there places for the kids to go around the area, parks and things that they could use for activities or sporting grounds?
Breckler Park was the main park, the main big one. But there's a park in House Crescent, just past the school, the back of the school. There's a little park there, which you can get in from either side. There was that to play with. Not a lot in those days, but now you can go. I can take my dog to goodness knows how many parks, and so that's good. But no, it's all coming back to the children, which is lovely. Yeah, I know. When the boys down the road, I know it's Saturday because I hear the thump, thump, thump of the basketball. They've all got basketball hoops now because they're not allowed to drive on a Saturday. And the boys opposite me and the kids next door and the boys down the road, and they all get together and play basketball. And it was just nice to hear children again, and people say, oh, children make noise. They're children, they're happy if they're making noise.
Yeah.
So, my son and daughter grew up there, and they both lived there until they left home to get married, so no, it was a very happy house. And the friends used to come and swim, and we always had a house full of children, which was lovely.
Yeah. Swimming pools are a good way of attracting all the neighbourhood.
Oh, I had a rule. I don't swim. And the rule was that they had to bring an adult with them show me that they were competent in the water. And I never had any trouble, thank goodness, because I couldn't jump in and say I'll save them. Although my children could, because they're really good swimmers.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
yes. But it's a nice area to live. It really is.
And can you tell me, when did you move over from England?
1963.
How old were you then?
17.
And can you tell me, describe what that was like when you first arrived?
Oh, it was unbelievable. The family I worked for in the shop, they asked me, did I really want to go to Australia? And I said yes, and they said, oh, that's fine, because if you didn't want to go, we would adopt you. I was 17, but they didn't have children. And I said, no, I'd like to go. And my father, being a policeman in England, joined the International Police Society and got in contact with the WA police, who put him in connection with a detective that lived in Scarborough. And he arranged a flat for us to go to when we first came, and we'd stand in the kitchen and look down the road at the beach. And I was in the water. I didn't swim, but I was in the water. It was August, and everybody thought, who's that mad woman out there in the water? Well, I didn't think it was cold, coming from England.
Yeah.
And
was it beautiful? Is that what you would,
yes,
how you would describe it?
Yes, it was so different. And the house we bought was on one side of the road, and the houses opposite, or the area opposite, was Scarborough, and our back fence was on Karrinyup. It was, I'd never found a snake in the toilet before. And I wouldn't have met my husband if it wasn't for my dad wanted to take a service station. And he went to the Shell School in West Perth and met my husband, who was also going to get a service station. And, Dad introduced us, and he didn't get a service station. He went and ran the workshop for my dad. So that was good, meeting him and having the children. So, no, I've never regretted it. I've never been back. I could go. I could go tomorrow if I wanted to. But especially now, I won't fly. My son is in Broome, and I've cancelled the trip because one of my grandsons had COVID. And I'm having an operation in August, so I don't want to jeopardise my health. So, but we talk online, and that's one good thing. My daughter lives 5 minutes away, and she's wonderful the way she and her husband look after me. I have no complaints. Nothing to complain about, except my health. But I'm basically healthy. It's just joints. They're all packing up and they're all getting replaced. But everybody's so nice here.
Yeah.
It's literally, when my neighbour comes for coffee, he timed it from the time he shuts the front door, gets in the car, gets the dog in the car, gets to my place, it's 2 minutes. So I haven't moved far, but I love it.
Yeah.
It's a lovely place, and Dianella to me is a lovely suburb.
Yeah.
The houses that are being built now are magnificent.
You've lived here, this is my last question, So you've lived here your whole life pretty much, from age 17 in this area.
Yeah,
Why is it so great? And why haven't you moved?
because we were happy there. We had great neighbours. We had room for my husband to have his workshop. It was a workshop-sized workshop with a hoist and everything, and that was his joy, working, because we closed our business and came home, and he raised the roof on the workshop. So I worked, or I did a lot of volunteer work, but I also worked in the business. So there was nothing not to be happy about. Two great kids, you know, caring husband, dogs, and you just sort of got to know your neighbours, even just by sight. There's a group of people, I can't do it anymore, but meet at this time of the year, 5:30 in the morning, to take the dogs for a walk all together, and I used to do the same thing. So you get to know people they're not necessarily neighbours, but they live in Dianella. And a poodle I had, in those days there weren't the Shire rules that there are today, and he would take himself for a walk to the park to have rides on the slide. He'd climb the stairs and slide down the slide, and when he'd had enough, he'd turn around and walk home again. He could do it. You know, there wasn't much traffic. When he went totally deaf, he couldn't hear. A clap he could feel. And we stopped him going for a walk because one day we could hear beep, 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 and his pedder walking down the middle of the road with a car behind him. He didn't know the car was there. So it was just too dangerous to let him out anymore. But that's the sort of neighbourhood it was. I mean, you know, he didn't get abused or anything because he was holding the person up. It really is. We all used to get together and have neighbour barbecues, things like that. So, no, I don't regret coming out here at all. And I'm glad we moved to Dianella, because Beaufort Street was a magnificent house, but trying to get out of your driveway in the morning to go to work, and even getting back in when you come home, you have to hold all the traffic up. And we decided, right, we're going to sell up and find a house in a quiet street, main bedroom in the back of the house, and plenty of room. And that's what we did.
Beautiful.
And stayed there, and I stayed there for 2 years after my husband died. But it was too much to maintain. It wasn't fair on my daughter and son-in-law, you know, to look after the pool, cut the grass, do everything. So, Dianella's a lovely place. And it's quite a large suburb, actually.
Yeah,
people don't realise how big it is. So, no, I would recommend it
beautiful.
to anybody.
Megan, thank you so much.
You're
that was
welcome.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
A beautiful story about your dog as well on the slide. My goodness, he sounds like the king of the neighbourhood.
People couldn't believe it, but no, he'd take himself off.